It's really sad that he passed. I loved him dearly. I remember him when he was chasing me down the street at Doheny when they were building the harbor in 1967 with a camera around his neck going, "Can I take some photos of you guys?" And we were going off to hide to smoke some pot and then go surfing. And here comes Art. He's about 3 years younger than me, so that was a big difference when you're 17 and 14 or 15 and 18, something like that. But Art, he was the photographer for Pacific Vibrations, and Spider Wells was the cameraman, along with John Severson. But they moved in next door to Dibby and I in '69, and we became really close friends. And he's taken the greatest images of surfing. They're unreal. A little emotional. But he was just the greatest photographer. And we went on trips together.
Love you, Herbie.
And he put me on the cover of magazines.
Yeah.
And, still got the photos and the memories. Those memories they mean a lot. Yeah.
Tell it.
Let it out.
So we're here to see Pacific Vibrations and Rick Griffin, who's passed away, who was really a great image cartoonist. And I loved looking at Surfer magazine when I was a kid because John Severson really didn't know what was going on, and he'd draw like little shine boy selling kilos off the back of trains, or something going on like that. And John was straight. And there was another photographer that was really great at the time, who was Art Brewer's mentor, and that was Ron Stoner, who's taken a lot of great images. And you can see some of them in the bathroom here. If you look around, they're pretty fantastic. California stuff. And it's just great to be a part of this surfing world and everything that's going on. And John Severson really put surfing on the map with his magazine in the 60s. And I just remember cutting out photos and putting them on the wall and just loving it and going surfing every day. Ditching school and, just loving it and still doing it, still going. Yeah, surfing Pipeline and Sunset and, not very big, but still paddling out, watching the other guys, just rip. Oh yeah, you can have that wave. I don't want that. So anyway, thanks for coming, and I'm gonna put you back with Dan. Here he is.
Herbie Fletcher. Thank you, man. First guy ever to tow anyone into a wave. Keep it real. We know Herbie. So, wow, rest in peace Art Brewer, rest in peace John Severson. So, just a real brief, we're gonna bring the Locos up in a minute. So, Jake Matthews, where are you?
There he is.
Raise your hand. Come up here, I'm gonna put you on the spot. That's how things work around this place. Welcome to Venice, dude, you're part of our neighborhood. Jake Matthews is the owner of this wonderful establishment at the Waterfront. We love him dearly, and we just want to say thank you for hosting this magnificent night. Thank you for all the support of us, and now you're on the spot. We appreciate you. So I hope you guys enjoyed the food and everything. Jake really cares about this neighborhood. He's a community-minded thinker, and he's going to say something. I love that.
Just quickly, I just want to say the place is designed for all of you. And so you all being here makes it come to life, and the restaurant business is tough, and it's been a rough couple years, and nights like this make it feel like it's all worth it. So thanks to Dan and Terry for doing this and bringing you all together. Please, if you ever come here and you don't have a great experience, come find me and let me know so I can fix it. Thanks for being here.
We love you, Jake Matthews. Legendary. Okay, so basically what's going to happen next is, so if any of you have ever been to a California Locos event before, California Locos is not a brand, it's a movement. It's a collection of artists that are just iconic in their own individual rights, but as a group, they're like the Rolling Stones meets the biggest band you can ever fucking think of. And we're just super honored to have them here. My name is Dan Levy. I work for Juice Magazine. Terry Kraft, who's sitting over to the left of me, started this magazine 30 years ago. We're independently owned and operated, and we're really community culture supported, and we really appreciate everybody's support for that. Dave Tourjé, John Van Hamersveld, Chaz Bojórquez, Norton Wisdom, and Gary Wong are the fucking super group of the California Locos, and they're all here tonight. And we're here to celebrate Rick Griffin, and I'd love to bring them all to the stage so we can ask them some questions about the wonderful life of Rick Griffin and their associations with it. Nana Nobrega, the creative director for California Locos, has designed all this wonderful Rick Griffin apparel and skateboards. He's gonna say some words about it as well. And Gary Wong, please sit down, brother. O.G. Just killing it right now. I love it. So here we have John Van Hamersveld. If you don't know who these people are, I mean, I'm just John. Whatever. I don't want to underwrite it, but you know, the Endless Summer poster. I mean, that's just one of them. Jimi Hendrix album covers. Chaz Bojórquez, the godfather of straight up East LA graffiti culture. Straight up. Dave Tourjé, Northeast LA, the skateboarder, and an unbelievably accomplished artist in his own right, who also formed the Chenard Foundation, where a lot of these guys went to school. So Chenard is, you know, Google that shit. You'll be like, it's amazing. Gary Wong, man, Gary Wong, the OG. He predates you all, I think. Gary's the oldest of the G's. Super famous blues musician, harmonicist. Is that a word, harmonicist? We're saying it. It's a word now. There's so much more to you. We're gonna get there. And then Norton Wisdom, over here. One of you know, these people are all my favorite people. Norton's been known to paint live on stage with some of the most legendary groups on the planet, The Doors, I mean, name it. Also, he's been, you know, saying no war for 40 years, maybe longer, but it's going okay, I think. Sorry, there's still wars, but I appreciate your effort. So without further ado, I think you need some drinks. Can we get Gary Wong a drink? Can we get a tab on the scene? Can we get a tab on the set, please? What would you like?
Water.
Can we get Gary Wong some water? First person that brings the water up gets a straight up high five. It's gonna be great. Okay, so I think without further ado, what's up? Nano, yeah, no, oh, we have Nano Nobrega right here too. Oh, look at that, you win, you get a high five. Don't leave without a high five. Oh, don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging, you did it. All right, thank you. So we're here to celebrate the life of Rick Griffin, and we're gonna, a lot of these guys knew Rick very well, or were inspired by him very greatly. So we're gonna start the show with Dave Tourjé, our fearless ringleader of the California Locos. I'm saying it, you're it. And why don't you go ahead and take control of this thing, Dave?
What do you want
There's no
to drink?
controlling this.
What do you want to drink?
Oh, he got a water. You got a water. Thank you.
By the way, is Robert Williams around?
Oh, shit. I didn't even...
Okay, we need Robert Williams. Robert Williams. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming here. All of you making this happen. We are the California Locos. We sort of fancy ourselves as representatives of different corners of Los Angeles. And I think this is the most loco group I've ever seen in my life. Give yourself a hand. I want to thank, besides thanking you, I'd like to thank the Griffin family for taking the time and trouble to get here. Flaven Griffin, Clayton, Adelia, Todd, and Miles, who's not here. Also, Ida Griffin is in the house. Give them a hand, please. Good friend of mine, Hollister Ranch buddy, Glenn Clark. Raise your hand, buddy. Yeah. All right, so he came down from Santa Ynez. A lot of this, in a way, got started because of Glenn, because he had a high-resolution copy of Pacific Vibrations. And he showed it to me like a year ago, and we were looking at it like, what is this thing? You know, where did it come from? Who owns it? And then I got together with Steve Barilotti, the editor for Surfer Magazine, through Flaven, and we started working together. We put together a little film, and next thing you know, Steve found out who owned the film, and we got the rights to screen it and to use the footage as we want in our own artistic sort of endeavors. So I thank those two gentlemen.
Yes.
Also, Tara O'Shea, she's in here somewhere. She connected me with Flaven, I think, a couple years ago, I guess. And so this whole thing, this is sort of the dream collab. Rick Griffin, I didn't know Rick Griffin, but I knew him through his art as a 13-year-old surfer, aspiring artist. I connected with his art and basically copied his work, as a way of finding my own voice. So Rick Griffin always was deeply influential for me. These guys in the Locos have a lot more to say, so I'm gonna keep moving. So thank you very much. Over to our mighty MC.
Oh boy. Dave Tourjé, everybody. Dave, you're a legend, dude. Let's just keep it real. John Van Hamersveld, you got the mic first, so this is how this game's gonna work. Wow, I don't even know where to start, but I'll start with this. You knew Rick Griffin pretty well.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
I think this mic's better.
So I was coming back from Aspen, Colorado on a ski trip for like 6 months.
Hold it a little closer.
And I drove by Haggerty's, and there was this little guy that came out of the water, and it was Rick Griffin. He was like 15 years old, he was 19. And so at that point, we kind of got to know each other because he knew I was going to art school, and he was an artist, and the neighborhood knew him as a Murphy character that he had developed. So I went off to Art Center for like about a year and a half, something like that, and I moved back into the neighborhood above Torrance Beach, and started a surfing magazine called Surfing. I can't remember the name of it, but Surfing Illustrated. And so Rick came over to the studio, and he said, John Severson is really upset with you, and he was the publisher of Surfer Magazine. So I tell Rick, call him. So he reaches over and he picks up the old black phone, and he calls down there, and he gets Severson on the phone. So they set up this meeting where I'm supposed to meet in Long Beach with John Severson. So I'm standing there with John Severson in a suit because I was working at Northrop during the day, and then I was doing freelance at night in the magazine. So John's in his golf clothes. He looks really wealthy. He's like 8 years older than I, and he says, I want to hire you. I want you to design Surfer Magazine. So Rick then is making the cartoons, and I'm working on the magazine. And so at that point, in about 3 or 4 issues later, I designed this magazine that has a kind of a sunset on the cover, and there's a local person within Dana Point, and they come by and they hire me to do this poster for them, The Endless Summer. Yeah, so meanwhile, really, the whole success of my transition from Torrance Beach to Dana Point and then back into Hollywood and all that is really Rick Griffin's help in negotiating all these different relationships with people. So over the years, as the culture changed, we became hippies through the art school, and he moved to San Francisco, and I was starting a dance hall in Los Angeles with partners and all that, and doing the campaign. So and then working at Capitol Records at the same time, and so I would travel over the weekends for like 2 days or so, and I would come in. I would fly in and I'd see Ida, and I'd see Flaven and Rick and all that, and it was an amazing transition into this sort of hippie culture and doing posters together, and where he did the Jimi Hendrix poster in San Francisco and I did Jimi Hendrix in LA. So that's kind of the way it all went.
No big deal at all.
No big deal.
John Van Hamersveld, everybody. Give it up for John Van Hamersveld, man.
The name of that concert promotion company back in 1967-68 was down at the Shrine Auditorium and Exposition Hall, and I worked with John on that. I used to do the MC and line work and arrange the sets for all the musicians.
Wait, Gary, we haven't told everybody who you are yet.
Oh, shit. Nobody really,
I
don't really care.
I'm going to tell everybody right now. I'm interrupting you. This is Gary Wong, everyone, by the way. Otherwise known as Charlie Chan, who won the Certificate of Recognition, is hereby presented to Charlie Chan for the harmonica player blues living legend. So the city of Los Angeles recognized Mr. Charlie Chan, which is now retired. But his real name is Gary Wong, and he's one of the Locos, and I just wanted to let everybody know that not only are these guys accomplished artists, they're accomplished musicians, and they're recognized by global amazing people. So now, LA, at least.
The corrupt city council.
Okay. I mean, but he's got a certificate to prove it, so there you go. So now, Gary, tell us about,
There's something in your life.
let's talk about Juke Savages, and let's talk about the story that we know is fucking legendary.
Okay, so we're talking about Rick Griffin. I don't know nothing about surfing, skating, none of that shit. Getting in the water, jumping on no boards. I ain't from Hawaii. I didn't even see the fucking beach till I was in high school, I'm gonna tell you. But I did go to art school. I went to Chenard. It was in the middle of the 60s, and the beginning of the 60s was a legendary place. I can't even begin to tell you some of the shit went down. Yes, I did have a musical entity turned into this cat, Charlie Chan. My first band was formed at Chenard. I had Mr. Terry Allen on piano and a bunch of other cats on guitar, bass, and drums. And I've been playing constantly in clubs around Los Angeles. I just retired last year after getting that. I retired because I got old and I ain't got the wind no more for it, so I can barely speak. I got here, though, to talk about Rick Griffin. Now, I preface this shit. I said, I don't know nothing about surf culture. I don't know nothing about Surfer Magazine. I don't know nothing about, right? So I'm sitting in the patio where we used to hang out in front of the library at Chenard. And there was a group of us, that first-year students, that kind of got together because we all in drawing class together. Ida was one of them. Boyd Elder was one of them. Mary Corse was one of them. And a bunch of people from El Paso. And we used to just hang out around this in front of the library. I said Boyd was the first one. My man Boyd Elder, a legend unto himself. He'd be here too. He's just fucking crazy, loco. If you know the fake Prada in Marfa, Texas, that's Boyd is hooked up to that, and the Judd family and like that. So, he's the art law that everybody doesn't know, some shit like that. At any rate, we're sitting at the picnic tables in front of the library at the Chenard patio. And in walks this dude. Also, there was this girl, Monique Vanderpool. See, John knows. Now we're coming together. I didn't know this motherfucker. He went to Chenard. I didn't know him. It was his girlfriend. We had drawing together. In walks this cat. I swear to God, I used to smoke Player cigarettes, and if you know Player cigarettes, there's a little sailor on it, and he's got a beard. He's all redheaded. He got a little hat and a patch. I think he had a patch. In my mind's eye, he had a patch. But this motherfucker walked through the door, had a patch, had a striped shirt. I said, God damn, he jumped off the cigarette pack. Not only that, look, he's a pirate. Who's this character? I said, the Chenard is a bunch of ding-dongs for sure. This is 1964, so I mean, you gotta, that's, it was pretty wild. Anyway, he comes in and we got to meet and greet, and he knew Monique. because I think she was from your neighborhood. Well, of course. I'm sorry, Monique, from his neighborhood. So that was his entree into Chenard. The story I want to tell you, though, is in two parts. And they have to do with significant in cultural terms in the worldwide tradition of significance. They lived. Rick finally eventually got this Victorian house on Ingram, which is kind of like a Bodleian temple, just up on the hill looking north. There were a couple of old, before it was decimated, these old Victorians. Rick got one, and next door is this cat named Peter Lewis. He got one. At that time, Rick and I had conversations about Kerouac and Beatniks and Paul Bowles and 100 Camels in the Courtyard. That kind of psychedelic literature and, beatnik shit, right? We talked that shit. And then I moved in and lived in the basement. So we'd have these dialogues. And so we're talking 64, 65, and Pete Lewis, we all kind of, wanted to be musicians, but none of us really played. Rick played this nylon classic guitar. I played a little bit of harmonica. Peter set up a little riser like this in his front room, and we called ourselves the Juke Savages. That was the beginning, and it didn't amount to much, but he took the name up to San Francisco and turned it into something as an art conglomerate. So I'm living in Rick's basement, and Peter Lewis has a sister who lives in San Francisco with a musician, and they want to get some weed. So we get a bunch of kilos and pop them in Peter Lewis's old Volvo, and Rick and me and Peter and this guy Bob jumped in the Volvo and head up in the middle of the night to San Francisco to meet this musician who's gonna get all this weed. 1964. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We break down right before Treasure Island. Car stops. They ain't dead of the night, ain't no traffic, and we just said, what the fuck we gonna do with this? We ended up pushing it over to Treasure Island, and all that got taken care of, sorted out. Called the sister, came, got the weed. We all made the connection. Fine is good. The band was called the Charlatans, and they didn't play in San Francisco. They played in Nevada and Virginia City. And Virginia City is like a cowboy town. So we'd go over to Virginia City, and these guys be like playing gunslingers. This is like the first, I think the Charlatans was the first San Francisco band of notoriety, I'm sure. And they made these little 8.5 by 11 posters, all handmade by George, who was the musician boyfriend. George Hunter, exactly. He made this little collectible, little yellow poster board, not too thick. And we go to Virginia City, and it's all cowboyed out, all the lettering, the logos, everything, saloon, all that shit, hotel. We come back, that was the first trip. The second trip, we're sitting by his drawing board. It's a wonderful drawing board. I'll never forget it. It had a patina on it to die for. I hope it's, in fact, I wanted to ask Ida, is that drawing board still around? At any rate, so now we're up all night and Rick is scribbling some shit, and I'm going, what is that, man? He said, well, I got to get this thing done because I got to deliver it tomorrow up in San Francisco. I said, what? He says, I got to write this thing out. I got to deliver it tomorrow in San Francisco. So he stayed up and said, boom, I'm going to jump in the car with Rick, and we jump up into San Francisco and pull up in front of this pad. And he says, what do you think? I said, well, how much you going to get for that? He said, about, I don't know, 600, 800, I forget what it was, 600. That was a lot of money. I said, you're fucking kidding. That shit is rough. It's rough, man. You didn't tighten it up. It's just rough. Everything, the lines hanging over. He said, don't worry about it. I said, why? He said, oh, the guy wants to start a rock and roll magazine, and, you know, he doesn't really care. He got money. He can afford this shit. I said, oh, well, you know best. We went in there, man, and opened the door, and the desk was right there. I couldn't believe it. He handed the shit over to the cat, and the cat looked at it. He said, fine, he gave Rick the money. We got out of there. I looked at Rick, I said, what the fuck? That was the first Rolling Stone logo. I think a couple of years later, the magazine came out, and we came back home. I don't know, Rick then met Ida, and, you know, everything kind of went this way and that way. And he went up to San Francisco, became a legend, and we're here to celebrate that legend.
Yeah, Gary Wong. That was great. You were there when the Rolling Stone logo was handed over to Jan Wenner. That's fucking ridiculous, man. Well, let's give it up for Gary Wong.
Yeah, we was fucked up, too.
Charlie Chan. So wait, let me get this. Next up to the stage, we want to bring one of the most culturally significant human beings living today, Mr. Robert Williams. If you're not familiar with Robert Williams, he was the founder of Juxtaposed magazine. He also, I mean, there's so many. Lowbrow art, pop surrealism. He did the Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses album cover for all of us 90s folks. But also, more importantly, punk rock. Robert Williams is a major movement in punk rock, and we appreciate it. But even more importantly, I'm going to hand this to you. Mr. Robert Williams, I'm sorry if I'm not glorifying you enough, but we're so honored that you're here, and we would love to hear your thoughts on working with Rick Griffin with Zap magazine.
That was an extremely nice introduction, and it certainly violates anything I would have like humility. I'll keep a straight face. Rick was a very, very close friend. I have got so many stories about Rick, and I don't know what to tell you, and I don't know how to sort the clean ones out. I loved Rick. He was very close to me. Rick lived 3 lives. He had the life of the good Christian. He had the life of the underground artist, and he had that secret life as an outlaw dissipator. Now, I'm not going anywhere with that third one. If I remember correctly, I either met Rick through Ed Roth or Stanley Mouse a long time ago. I know in the mid-60s, 66, 67, I started to get these little postcards that the rock and roll places were sending down to the psychedelic posters. And that's the first time I saw his work. I vaguely probably remember Murph the Surf, but not being a surfer, that didn't blow my skirt up. His first drawings were a little scratchy for me, but then just like lo and behold, out of nowhere, he become a master draftsman. I mean, it's just like overnight, he just got a real command of what he wanted to draw, and his expression and his imagination and his design quality was just unbelievable. It was magic. To appreciate him then, you'd have to know Mouse and Kelly and Victor Moscoso and Wes Wilson and those guys to see how he fit in so perfectly. He was like, there was 5 guys called the Big 5 psychedelic poster artists, and they were in harmony with each other. Well, I'm not going to go on about the psychedelic poster movement, but Rick went off on one of his tangents tangent somewhere, one of his mystical journeys, one of his secret soirees, and he failed to not come back to Zap Comics. So I took his place in Zap Comics as a slick artist. I was referred to as kind of a slick artist. Well, Rick eventually did come back, but I remember in '69, Rick came over to my house, and he came over in a van, and he slid the door open of the van, and he showed that piece of artwork for Pacific Vibrations right when he did it. And from that point on, we become very, very close friends. Both me and him had some connection with Chenard's, and me and him and the psychedelic poster artist and the underground cartoonist, we commiserated over the fact that all the art schools, and Chenard's included, was totally dominated by rather loose art, and there was no pride in draftsmanship. So we were kind of a federation of disenfranchised artists that really enjoyed tight, well-done draftsmanship. When I first met Rick, he was, well, I guess Rick must have always been some kind of a mystic, but he was pretty much into Aleister Crowley and the Rosicrucians and mystery symbolism and stuff like that. And it was kind of a wonderful romantic thing that he could go off in the fog and appreciate what mysteries were in the nebula of the human mind and whatnot. I think that's Rick. To see Rick, he was very, very handsome, very handsome guy. He had he stood erect. I don't know if he was muscular or chubby, but he looked really good. He had a real strong nose, and he was blonde-headed. And of course, this attracted women. And then some unfortunate happened in his past, and he was telling me that he was out surfing one time or somewhere, and he picked up a hitchhiker and they let the hitchhiker drive his car, and the next thing he knew, the car was upside down and he was on the pavement sliding on his face. So he lost part of his face and part of his eyelid. Well, they took the hair from under his arm and put it up on his cheek so he could shave. And this even made him look better. He was good looking before, but this looked like he had gone through all kinds of tribulations in life. So I remember that there was all the Zap artists were over at Victor Moscoso's house having a comic book jam. This was '69, and we're all sitting around around this big table drawing in the jam. It was me, Victor Moscoso, Robert Crumb, S. Clay Wilson, and Spain Rodriguez. It was like the whole bunch of knuckleheads. And we're just drawing away, and all of a sudden Rick stands up and he has a fucking vision. He's just like, he got real solemn and like, this is like serious, man. Like, this isn't like, I'm with friends, but man, this is serious. He stood up, and we're all looking at him, and he's standing up here straight, looking up in the sky, and he cautioned us to hold it down, and S. Clay Wilson says, shut up and sit the fuck down. So the power that he had over certain individuals, that mystic thing, was only good as a kind of a cute little attraction with us. But with other people, he had a very, very dynamic personality. He would win friends instantly, and he had, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this properly. He had a way of talking where there was a lot of dead air between each syllable. And you'd think, oh my God, what power. But I think he's just kind of numb, I don't want to say dumb, but I'll say numb. But that worked very dramatically, because you'd ask him a question and he'd stare at you, then look off into space, and it got this real profound feeling, and then he'd kind of give you some little question like, were you worth the time to really fill out this information? But he had a very warm personality when he wanted to like somebody, and he was just one of my best friends. I had the fortune to go with Glenn Bray and Lena Zolv and my wife Suzanne to Easter Island with Rick. Now that was a situation when Rick, like I said, was something of a dissipator. I guess you guys know what a dissipator is. And we were in Chile before we went to Easter Island, and then we went to Machu Picchu in Peru. And now, when you're in South American countries, you don't want to start having anything to do with drugs. Now, there's people around you doing drugs that are natives, but it isn't worth the authorities to mess with them because they don't have any money. But when you're a tourist and you go to these countries and you start dealing with a little bit of drugs, it means a lot of money to them through lawyers and whatnot. So we were very cautious with Rick about, no, Rick, no, don't do that, no, Rick. Well, we walked in front of the post office in Lima, and there was a booth out there selling postcards. And by golly, there was a giant stalk of marijuana laying out there, right in front of the city library, the post office. And so we said, hey, don't let Rick see that. Don't let Rick see that. And we were in Peru at the same time that the economy had collapsed, and everybody that lived in Peru was on the street with little change makers trying to talk you in to changing your money for the latest exchange, see, because traveler's checks weren't any good. So there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people on the street shoving little adding machines in your face saying they're going to get you a good deal. Well, Rick saw one guy, and he just went up to him and wanted to know all the details of this. And then, doesn't Rick understand that these are all cheats? And then Rick all of a sudden says, this guy's cheating me. And I thought there was going to be a riot in the streets. We had to rustle him off. But we were in Machu Picchu, and we could hardly breathe. The altitude was just, you'd just go a little ways and it'd just start getting your lungs. Rick looked way up on the hill, a quarter mile away, and he saw some Indians walking up there. He says, I bet they got some coca leaves. So he sprinted all the way up that hill, and he come back with a giant bag of coca leaves. For 5 days, we got coca leaves stuck in our mouths. That really saved the visit. But we went to Easter Island. Easter Island had got rather primitive people on it at this period of time. This was '88. And they were like true natives. I'm trying to say it carefully, but they were ill-educated people. So they really took to Rick, and they called him El Pistolero, the cowboy. So he had, in no time, 3 days, he had that island of 2,000 natives totally enchanted, absolutely enchanted. But we got to be very, very close friends, and me and Suzanne and the Zap artist got to see his private life and whatnot, and I'm not going to go on to what a wonderful guy was, because he was a human being, and he had a lot of goddamn shortcomings, and a lot of people can point those out to you. I don't think that's my position to do that. But I remember at a hot rod meet, Von Dutch, the famous pinstriper and hot rod flame painter, was there. And Von Dutch was the kind of guy that really prided himself on being an asshole. He's a two-fisted right-wing son of a bitch that, proud to have Nazi sympathies. And he threatened to shoot me and whatnot. But I introduced him to Rick. And he looked into Rick's face and saw that scarred face, and I could see Von Dutch wincing, you know. And that little simple gesture, that little modest gesture, old tough Von Dutch wincing when he looked into, because when you looked at Rick, he enchanted you, you know. He had a calling. He had that personality and that real deep, rich voice. And like I said, he was short on words, you know. But anyway, he had passed now. It's been 31 years. The last time I saw him was about 2 weeks before he passed away. He'd come by my house on his Harley Davidson. And we had an afternoon together for about an hour. Then I walked him out to his Harley. And I said, Rick, you know, I used to ride these things myself, and I was always in the fucking hospital, you know. These goddamn things will kill you, you know. And he rode off to the sunset, and that's the last time I saw Rick, so I don't know what else to tell you.
Wow. Robert Williams, everybody. What an absolute gift. Thank you so much, Robert, for sharing. That was, I mean, come on, you guys, like... Wow. Okay. Well, a little speechless, but Chaz Bojórquez, let's move the train along, so to speak. Gary's ditching me. Let's bring to the stage Mr. Chaz Bojórquez, the godfather of East LA graffiti culture, an all-around good person, and fucking one of my favorite people on the planet. Tell us something about Rick Griffin, Mr. Chaz.
I'll make it quick. 1963. All right, we were making skateboards with steel wheels, you know. Taking the roller skates and hammering them down on the boards, and that's what we were doing. One time I lived in Highland Park, and we would skateboard from Highland Park all the way to Hollywood, barefooted. You know, that we thought it was cool, but we realized that was dumb. And but I wasn't like Gary. I was not a skater, not a surfer, not a swimmer. We weren't raised around swimming pools. But we tried to be cool, and I kind of met these skater guys in '63, and they introduced me to this magazine, a surf magazine, and there I saw Rick Griffin's Murph the Surf, and all that. Somehow, if you look at it, it's simple drawing, you know, classical and all that, but it grabbed us. And all that. I thought it was the coolest thing because there was no really cool comic books at that time and all that. So I started going to art school. I was about 14 on the side. I met Marcel Duchamp, and he said, go ahead, you want to be an artist, just be an artist. I went to some parties in Hollywood, and it was all cartoonists. And then there I met, I said, who's this little kid running around? It was, you know, the 2-year-old underneath our feet. Oh, don't mind it, that's Leonardo DiCaprio, you know that. But his godfather was there, and it was Robert Williams, and all that. And so we met there, I went to Chenard Art Institute, but I was a ceramicist, so I kept in a different building. And I met Robert Williams there, but we weren't really good friends, but I admired him. I knew who he was and all that. Robert Stout and all these other cartoonists. All right, 15 years later, I come traveling around the world, you know, 45 countries, come back to LA trying to find myself and all that. So I'm working in Hollywood and movie posters, movies. And the art director said, hey, I'm going to go to a barbecue this weekend. You want to come with me? It's going to be down at the Buena Vista Hollywood Cars of the Stars.
Buena Park.
At Buena Park and all that. So it was a private party. They had it was like a barbecue all inside. And then there was we sat down at a table, and then there was a man right across from me, and he turned around, and it was Robert Williams. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I introduced myself. We started talking, and I said, oh man, you know, one of my favorite artists is Rick Griffin. He goes, oh, you want to meet him? He's right here. So I was extremely shy. I did graffiti, right? You know, Señor Suerte. I'm out there doing my own thing and all that. But Rick Griffin, when I saw his posters, his lettering styles, I go, that was Cholo. He was doing his letters. He was doing drop shadows. He was with the Dogtown. The Dogtown Z Boys were using some of Cholo stuff and all that. I felt an affinity was kind of going on. So he said, "Here, you want to meet Rick Griffin?" I said, "Yeah." So he brought me up to this tall man, that was facing the other way. And he says, "Hey, this guy kind of likes your work." And he turned around, Rick Griffin turned around, and damn, it was this scary person who had ripped face and all that. I mean, just tall. And you're right, he was just a person. He stood out from everybody else. I was shocked and all that. He was my hero. Rick Griffin was my hero. That was it.
Wow. Chaz Bojórquez, everybody. Man, that was is anyone else freaking out how legendary this is? It's just me. Norton Wisdom. My goodness. The hits just keep coming. This is Norton Wisdom. He's one of the California Locos, but also one of the more legendary artists on the planet, along with these other wonderful people. He always wears a no war shirt. He plays by his own rules. He paints live on stage with some of the most legendary bands in the history of this planet. But more importantly, he hates when I talk about him. So let's talk about Rick Griffin, Mr. Wisdom. We love you.
Well, first of all, you should never follow children, dogs, or Williams and Chaz on stage. This is really fucked up for me to get on stage after.
Sorry.
So what I'd really like to say is I'd like to have Williams get up here and repeat everything he said, because I was just blown away by it. So will you do that? Will you go back and take us on that journey again? Because it really was pretty special. In my world, Murph the Surf was how we all learned to draw. I don't know one artist in the early '60s that didn't start drawing Murph the Surf, and what that meant was we saw drawing as a form of narrative. It had a not a very profound story, but a human story in a very simple way of presentation. So I was cured of that idiot fucking message by going to Chenard's and learning how to draw a figure, and set on the right course, which was fucked up again when I met Rick in Haight-Ashbury in '66, and he showed me some psychedelic posters, and I realized I had gone again on the wrong path, and I reorientated myself, and then a year later went to Berkeley and got again flipped and started doing abstract expressionism. And I lived in a place, a 3-story house, which was a crash pad for all the people from Haight-Ashbury that would come to Berkeley. And Rick and his crew would hang out there when they didn't want to drive back to the city. And I was raised by this guy, Manly P. Hall, he really was a scholar on Rosicrucianism, and Rick was, you couldn't shut him up about this stupid stuff, and it went on and on all night. And so I would basically just going to end this little journey with saying he really several times ruined my life, and I don't know if there's a way of recovering for what he does to a person. So Rick, fuck you. I love you.
Norton fucking Wisdom, man. Oh my God. This is amazing. Well, we have something really special happening right now. We'd love to bring to the stage Flaven Griffin Clayton, Rick's first daughter. If you'd be so obliged, it'd be our honor to have you say some words about what's going on here. Flaven! Give it up for Flaven Griffin Clayton, everybody.
I just want to thank everybody for being here, and I know everybody has their own story about my dad, including us kids. And the thing that I want people to know is I feel like my dad is one of the greatest 20th century American artists. And if you walk down Venice, you'll see lettering on walls that is inspired by him. And not a lot of people know that that's where all that imagery and art came from. So I want young people to do your research, give kudos to the incredible people up here on this stage, and my father included, Rick Griffin. And know, if you're an artist, if you're in music, know who your mentors are and go study and check it out. And I just want to thank California Locos, because that's what we want people to know, is the name synonymous with all the imagery and the artwork and the lettering. And so thank you, California Locos, for doing this collab with us and our family and honoring Rick Griffin. We're really grateful. Thank you. And thank you for his comrades. I grew up with these guys. I was just a little kid. And we always had really weird people in our house. And we had paintbrushes in the silverware drawer. And we had old funky cars out in front of our house. And I was always really embarrassed about it. But it's legend. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.
What an absolute treat. Give it up for Flaven Griffin. Wow. I'm not crying, you're crying. That's amazing. This is just special. Thank you so much. Nano no brega. I try to do a Spanish thing for you. This is Nano, the creative director of California Locos. He's going to tell you a little bit about the collection that's over here to my right that California Locos is doing with Rick Griffin. Have at it, my friend.
Norton, so you're feeling bad about coming up here after these guys? What do I do?
Just talk about
selling skateboards right now? Hey guys, I'm just honored to be here. I kind of sit in the same, cherries you guys are sharing with me as a fan. These guys are complete legends. There's enough to talk about Rick Griffin, right? He's a huge influencer. I've been surfing since I'm 5 years old, so always looked up to, his artwork and whatnot. So, as a brief story, like I met John first doing a collaboration with Endo Summer. He introduced me to Dave Tourjé, and from there on, he explained me about the Locos, and I was actually chasing Chaz Bojórquez to do something with him. I was like, dude, please introduce me to Chaz. And then John kept saying, you gotta talk to Dave. When I met Dave, and he explains me the entire story behind these guys, I was like, you know what? Sorry, Chaz, but I gotta do all you guys together. So I got all the 5. We did an O.G. collection. We did a lounge with Juice magazine, which was great right here, right? And
it was great, yes.
And then after that, we did something with Robert Williams, which is unbelievable. Again, extremely honored again. And then we recently did something with Mr. Cartoon, and we're finally doing something with Rick Griffin, which is, it's right here for you guys. Today is a pre-launch. We're actually launching this for December 11th. This is very limited. There's only 100 of each. That's why we're giving you guys, tips to try to get one of these before we launch it. And I hope you guys like it. Thank you so much for coming out. I want to say thanks to Todd Clayton, which is the guy that runs, the Rick Griffin, state. We've been trying to put this together for a few years, and it finally happened. I'm super stoked.
Yay.
And Dan, you're a warrior, my friend. Thank you so much,
dude. This is great. Just because he's not going to self-promote this, all the stuff that's over here is very good quality. They take very good care in everything the Locos put out. They don't half-ass fucking anything. Because look who's fucking standing next to us, right? So, one more thing. Oh, grab it, dude.
Feel spoiled here, like Mariana Pomones. Are you here? We got a collection coming out for you.
Oh, another announcement.
So, this is coming shortly, Mariana. LA artist, we're very honored to be working with you, and don't I got this guy poking me every single time we get together, Mr. Chaz Bojórquez, so something's coming up. So anyways, guys, stay tuned. A lot more to happen. California Locos, like Dan said, we're not a brand. This is a cultural movement.
Yes.
This is what it's all about, energy and stoke. Right, Tourjé? It's all about stoke, dude.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Leonard right here taking photos. No brega. I like saying your last name. I like you said Lowich instead of launch. It's great. So there's another little gift that the Griffin family is going to have that we're all going to be able to share tonight. Dave Tourjé and Steve Barilotti have been working on this fucking amazing short film as a tribute to the Rick Griffin legacy. Steve, also Julian Clark. Hey man, don't leave people out. You know what I'm saying. Where's Steve Barilotti? Hey, Steve Barilotti, we're going to bring you up to the stage. Following this, this is Steve Barilotti, who worked with John Severson, Surfer Magazine, Skateboarder Magazine. Fucking icon, dude. I mean, as a magazine person, no offense, you guys, but I'm kind of tripping a little right now. So, I would love for you to explain what's gone into making this short film and do your thing.
I thought icon just means old. Really, icon not, but admirer, yes. Fanboy, yes. I grew up, unfortunately, inland California, and a bit too young to catch Woodstock. I was like the kid brother of the counterculture. So all these guys were my heroes. I was picking up Zap comics, I was picking up the posters, I was picking up Surfer Magazine, having no idea that Rick Griffin was in all of them. He was linking it all. So he was infused in the geography, he was part of the culture. But I didn't really know until years later when I went to work for Surfer Magazine, when I saw his early stuff, Murphy, not Murph the Surf, sorry guys, and started connecting the dots. So the guy who had done this as a teenager, as a 16-year-old back in 1960, was the same one who was doing these mind-blowing posters up in San Francisco, doing Zap comics, even those weird religious tracts you get from Calvary Chapel that they hand you, that he was doing that as well. So he was crossing all these things, and the story got in me because I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, and I thought, and it just so happened in 2002 I saw Dogtown and Z-Boys. So there are a number of people that were in that film that are here tonight.
Shout out to Jeff Ho.
Shout out to Jeff Ho. Okay. And that film blew my mind. I said, if they can do a film about that, why not Rick Griffin? So I suffered a vision. Let's do a film. I knew nothing about filmmaking, but let's give it a try. Started on that. Through that journey, I met Ida Griffin, and she became kind of my muse, my guide, telling me stories, sometimes more about Rick than I wanted to know, because it's hard to meet your heroes. It really is. And I have a whole story about almost meeting Rick one time before he died. And so the project went up, it went down, went in the box, came out of the box. In the meantime, I learned how to make films. I worked on 10 other films and came to this point. A few years ago, 2019, pre-pandemic, met up with Doug Prey, who is a world-class documentary. Yeah, he made Surfwise about the Pasquitz family. We have one of the Pasquitzes here tonight.
I know that, dude.
Yeah. And Doug, over the years, would hear me bemoan about trying to get this film made, couldn't do it. And he says, you know what, I'm going to help you get it made. So we went out. He says, you need a real producer. I said, I worked with this guy, Tim Lynch, down in Patagonia. Tim Lynch, are you here tonight? Tim? Right there, okay.
Nice.
From Farm League. You've probably seen his product, 180 South, Chris Malloy's movies, a ton of other stuff. Anyway, we put a team together, went to Vans, had 19 people in the room. We want to make this film. March 2020, COVID hits. All right, let's do it one more time. And that's when Flaven puts me in touch with Dave Tourjé. And the thing that Dave and I have, we are both Griffin geeks. And we can just talk story for hours and hours, and that's more fun even than making movies. So we said, what can we do with the budget we have and the assets we have? I said, there are so many stories. You've heard so many here tonight. You know there's a movie here. I said, why don't we just take one small story and do it as the best we can and have fun? So that's what we're doing. I hope you enjoy it. And are we ready to roll?
Wait, before we roll, so you guys are ready for the short, right? So I've seen this. Dave Tourjé, and Steve put together. This is a short film, but it hits like a 90-minute movie. I'm just gonna say it. This is unbelievable work. What an honor. I think without further ado, it's called Pacific. What's it called again? Interlude?
No, it's called Rick Griffin Interlude 01.
Thank you.
Hopefully there'll be a 02. Pacific Vibrations, and I don't know. Welcome aboard.
It's amazing. Are you guys ready? Okay. Starlight Cinemas, let's roll. This is insane, you guys. Okay, here we go. Can we cut the lights? Let's give it up for Dave Tourjé and Lucian Clark and Steve Barilotti. That was a fucking gift, man. Wow, I don't even have words. That was just unbelievable. And continuing the celebration to keep the train rolling metaphorically, physically, and in all greatness. For the first time in 50 years, we're gonna show Pacific Vibrations. Dave Tourjé put in a lot of work to get this film to be able to be shown tonight, and I just want to say thank you, and I think everyone just needs to give a big round of applause to the California Locos, the Griffin family, and I think we should just give a big shout out to Rick Griffin, because I believe he's probably looking down right now and smiling like we all are. And in the spirit of surfing, skating, and music and art and culture, I hope everybody's talking to each other tonight and getting to know each other, meeting some new friends, keeping this family going strong, because this is what we have. And we celebrate the art, we celebrate the movement, we celebrate the culture together. And without us as the people, this wouldn't matter. So thank you all for being here. Dave Tourjé, please come up and say something amazing, because I know that's going to happen. Here, try this one.
It works. Really, I want to conclude by thanking Dan and Terry Kraft, Juice Magazine. They presented this whole event. They worked their, you know what, off days and days and days. Please give it up for them.
Thank you, Dave. And I just for everybody that you got a lanyard that came in tonight. Everybody gets to take home a little piece of Rick Griffin, and I hope you guys put this somewhere in your house that's special, and share this with the next generation. Share it with the kids. Share it with the skaters, the surfers, the musicians. Let's keep Rick Griffin's legacy and life alive forever. And we appreciate you all. And so now, for the first time in 50 fucking years, Pacific Vibrations. Thank you all.